Good evening. You're watching London Live News at 6 with James Dickman. Coming up this evening, Liz Truss faces Sir Keir Starmer in her first Prime Minister's questions in the House of Commons as they clash over taxes and energy. We'll run you through her new cabinet as well as she sat down with her top team and appointed some of her key allies in the big jobs. We'll also have an update on London's weather as well in the next 10 minutes. Also on the way, Thomas Tuchel becomes the first major managerial casualty for the London clubs in the Premier League as Chelsea part company with the German, who won them the Champions League. And we'll hear from Kids in America singer Kim Wilde on her new show in the capital. But first, new Prime Minister Liz Truss faced her first Prime Minister's questions today. She confirmed that she would set out her package of support to deal with soaring energy bills tomorrow. She used her first PMQs to promise to work with MPs across the House to tackle the challenges we face at a vital time for our country, she said, while standing firm on her position to not windfall tax large oil companies who have recorded record profits this year.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honoured to take my place as Prime Minister in this House and to take on responsibility at a vital time for our country. I am determined to deliver for everybody across our United Kingdom. I will work constructively with all members of this House to tackle the challenges we face. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today. I am against a windfall tax. I believe it is the wrong thing to be putting companies off investing in the United Kingdom just when we need to be growing the economy.
Well, that formed a big part of the clash between Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, who took aim at Truss's plan that will likely see billions of pounds of borrowing instead, whilst also giving corporations a big tax cut.
She knows that every single pound in excess profits she chooses not to tax is an extra pound on borrowing that working people will be forced to pay back for decades to come. More borrowing than is needed. That's the true cost of her choice to protect oil and gas profits, isn't it?
Mr. Speaker, the reality is that this country will not be able to tax its way to growth. The way we will grow our economy is by attracting investment, keeping taxes low, delivering the reforms to build projects quicker. That is the way that we will create jobs and opportunities across our country.
Mr. Speaker, it's extraordinary that not only is the Prime Minister refusing to extend the windfall tax, she's also choosing to hand the water companies polluting our beaches a tax cut. She's choosing to hand the banks a tax cut.
Scenes from PMQs there today. Well, just before, multiple protesters were arrested after throwing paint on the Palace of Westminster. Animal Rebellion, who are an animal and climate justice movement, gathered outside Parliament, as you can see, pouring some kind of white liquid onto the roads here as well. A group of protesters have also glued themselves to the road outside and were chanting about dairy distribution sites in the UK. The group staged similar protests throughout London earlier this month. Well, back to Liz Truss. She held her first cabinet meeting with her top team this morning after the sweeping reshuffle she's enacted. Let's take a look. 3 changes amongst some of the highest-ranking ministers. She's appointed Kwasi Kwarteng as the new Chancellor. James Cleverly is now the Foreign Secretary, and Suella Braverman leaves her post as Attorney General to become the new Home Secretary after Priti Patel's resignation on Tuesday. Therese Coffey becomes the new Deputy Leader and Health Secretary. Ben Wallace remains in place as Defence Secretary, proving a solid pair of hands on his visits to European nations and Ukraine after the start of the conflict with Russia. A few other names for you there as well. Braverman was one, but more roles. The two other leadership candidates that Truss came up against in her campaigning, Penny Mordaunt and Kemi Badenoch there. An ally in Boris Johnson's cabinet, Jacob Rees-Mogg, takes over as Business Secretary, formerly Kwasi Kwarteng. Grant Shapps no longer the Transport Secretary, as we can see here as well, and a constant in most cabinets we've seen over the last few years, Nadim Zahawi as Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, which is the second highest ranking minister in the Cabinet Office immediately after the Prime Minister. He had been Chancellor of the Exchequer for 2 months, promoted when Rishi Sunak resigned. Before that, he was Education Sec. There you go, and just staying on the Deputy Leader and the new Health Secretary, Therese Coffey. She said she will not seek to undo any aspects of abortion laws, despite her views on the subject. The Deputy PM, who is a Catholic, voted against same-sex marriage in 2013 and extending abortion rights in Northern Ireland. She also voted against making at-home abortion pills introduced during the pandemic permanently available in England and Wales. The British Pregnancy Advisory Service has called the new Health Secretary's record on abortion rights deeply concerning. Let's just move back to some of the main stories from London today. The Metropolitan Police has said it knows the family and community of a man shot by an officer want answers. Chris Cabba, who was due to become a father within months, died after police chased him down, which ended in Streatham Hill on Monday night before shooting him. Mr. Cabba, a 23-year-old rapper known as Maddox, was part of a Mobo-nominated drill group. Well, in a statement, the Met said it recognises the devastating and lasting impact that this tragic incident will have. It is being investigated. A £35 million scheme that turned Tottenham Court Road into a two-way street and banned cars during the day has cut traffic levels by 2/3 and saw air quality improve. The West End project, as it's called, saw the number of vehicles using the road on weekdays fall by 65% from March 2017 to March this year. Only buses and bikes are allowed from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday. Camden Council, which commissioned the study into the figures, said it makes the area more attractive to residents and shoppers. There's hope to encourage Westminster's new council, who are under Labour leadership now, to adopt a similar scheme on Oxford Street. Tunnelling for the new public transport-focused river crossing at Silvertown is now underway. TfL said the 1.4-kilometre Silvertown tunnel under the river will link Newham to Greenwich Peninsula and provide improved bus links across the Thames when it opens in 2025, as well as reduce congestion around the Blackwall Tunnel. While climate protesters have expressed concerns about the new crossing's impact on traffic and air pollution, charges will be introduced as well for using both tunnels once Silvertown Tunnel opens. And staying with transport, London Marylebone railway station has reopened after being closed for tunnel repairs. No Chiltern Railway trains could enter or leave the West London station until around 10 a.m. this morning. Passengers were delayed whilst engineers repaired loose brickwork in St John's Wood's tunnel. And to sport, Chelsea have sacked manager Thomas Tuchel following their 1-0 Champions League defeat by Dynamo Zagreb last night. The 49-year-old former Borussia Dortmund and Paris Saint-Germain boss leaves Stamford Bridge after 20 months at the helm. The new owner, Todd Boehly, has placed Tuchel's coaching staff in temporary charge until replacement is found. Chelsea have approached Brighton's Graham Potter to take on the job. Well, this was Tuchel's last press conference as Chelsea manager, where he gave a scathing assessment of his side in the wake of last night's loss.
I'm angry on myself. I'm angry on our performance. This is a huge underperformance from all of us. It's not precise enough. It's not clinical enough. It's not aggressive enough on the ball. It's not determined enough. It's not enough individually. It's not enough as a team. And that's why we lose this game today. It's on me to find solution and to find the reason why, but it's obviously that we underperform individually. I don't really know where this performance today comes from. For me, it's a lack of a lack of determination, even a lack of determination, hunger, a lack of intensity, repetitive intensity, a lack of determination to win duels, and to actually do the things on the highest level, on the toughest level. And you cannot expect to win games, and not in Premier League and not in Champions League. It's the two toughest competitions then you can play in. And we are clearly not where we want to be.
Chelsea experiencing a brief dip in form. Perhaps it was his words, though, last night what done it, though. Well, Spurs also kicking off their Champions League campaign tonight. They welcome French side Marseille to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Antonio Conte's team have enjoyed an unbeaten start to their Premier League season. Captain Hugo Lloris says the manager's influence is crucial as the club returns to Europe's biggest competition.
Our manager is our main leader, and I believe that there is a connection between the manager feelings and the way the team is playing. You know, so at the moment I feel there is a great connection, and it's not the moment to do less. It's the moment to do more, to push ourselves, to continue in the right way.
French goalkeeper and captain Hugo Lloris there. Let's just take a look at the weather for you now. Showers heavy in places in the early hours of this morning, easing off by dawn. Tomorrow we'll see patchy cloud and some sunny spells. During the afternoon, though, the cloud will build up a bit more, giving way to some scattered showers. Friday is set to be rather cloudy with a few sunny breaks and scattered showers as well. Dry on Saturday, though slightly overcast, hovering around that 20-degree mark for the foreseeable. Right, we're taking a quick break now, but still to come. One economist on his fears Truss's premiership will make the UK more isolated from the rest of the world. We'll hear from him.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. Let's just take you through some of the main national headlines that will be affecting Londoners. Tens of thousands of businesses are at risk of going under without government support because of soaring energy bills, according to insolvency experts. Red Flag Alert, which monitors the financial health of firms, told the BBC previously profitable companies are experiencing significant losses. Among those that survive, many will be forced to make workers redundant, the consultancy said. Green campaigners have reacted angrily to the appointment of Jacob Rees-Mogg as Business Secretary, where he will be in charge of the energy and climate brief. Rees-Mogg has previously played down the earthquake risk of fracking and stressed the need for oil firms to be able to keep their profits amid calls for a windfall tax to ease spiralling bills for you and me. Well, he has also warned against climate alarmism and said he wants his constituents to have cheap energy rather than windmills, as he put it. And Alex Hales has been called up to the England cricket T20 squad for the first time since 2019, replacing Johnny Bairstow due to injury. The 33-year-old has not played for England since being dropped from the 50-over World Cup squad in March 3 years ago because of an off-field incident. Well, speaking in February 2020, the then England captain Owen Morgan said there was a breakdown in trust between Hales and the team, and a considerable amount of time was needed to regain that trust. Well, Hales has been constantly one of the most explosive talents in the format for his country and round the world in franchise cricket since he was left out. Alex Hales selected for the England T20 World Cup squad there. Now, back to the issue at hand as Liz Truss began settling into that hot seat today alongside her new ministers. According to one expert, Britain could become more and more isolated by the day internationally. With Liz Truss as Prime Minister, Dr. Steve McCabe, a political economist at Birmingham City University, also said that given the issues that need to be tackled urgently, most leaders get 100 days before judgment, whereas Truss will have more like 100 hours.
She's been in government for sort of a long time. She was a sort of minister under Cameron, so she is a great survivor, which indicates something. So clearly she's able to sort of to shapeshift to suit her own sort of purposes. And let's face it, as I said a couple of moments ago, very few ever sort of make the top job. Very few make cabinet for that matter. She's been combative, certainly in terms of Ukraine. She's been combative with the EU. And of course, we know that the whole issue of sort of Brexit, and she was a sort of Remainer, although she claims it was part of collective responsibility. And during the hustings, she's made noise about how she's going to sort of deal with the EU. The reality is our economy is sort of falling to bits for a number of reasons, but certainly not helped by our sort of situation or sort of our relationship with our closest trading partners. So, and of course, that sort of then translates into sort of relationship with the US, because as long as Joe Biden is president, which we believe will be for the next 2 years, failing any sort of disaster, if she sort of pulls the plug on the sort of the Northern Ireland Protocol, which of course she also claimed she was going to do, then forget any sort of trade deals with the US. So we could fall out with the US, fall out with the EU, and of course relationship with China are not too good either. Britain becomes more and more isolated by the day. I think, and I hope for all of our sake, that she recognises that sort of a bit of conciliatory language would go a long way to making all of our lives better.
Now, according to new research, most adults have seen a rise in the multi-purposing of services in their local area in the capital. For example, post offices, which double up as shops, and supermarkets incorporating a pharmacy, that sort of thing. However, London has seen a reduction in bank branches since 2015, with 644 being shuttered already or scheduled to close by the end of 2023. Well, Stuart Miller, a member of the High Streets Task Force, is worried about the future of our high streets in London. He spoke with me about the importance of keeping them community hubs in our area.
The research we did at Newcastle Building Society basically said that people welcomed the fact that businesses were offering more different services, but also partnering, maybe sharing premises. It's kind of something we've been working on now for the last few years at the Building Society. So we've been partnering with community hubs, with libraries, with local authorities, effectively sort of sharing premises, sharing each other's customers. And it's, effectively led to an innovative new kind of branch model that's allowing us to open more branches where obviously a lot of the banks are closing a lot of their branches on high streets. Yeah, banks are closing on high streets for probably an obvious reason. And not many people are needing them anymore with everything being online and doing it that way. Why do we need to keep financial services, in your opinion, on the high street? Because I certainly haven't been in one for years. Yeah, I mean, again, what our customers and the research tells us, in fact, 80% of people said that when things like, I mean, recently we've had COVID and now we've got the cost of living crisis. And when people need certain types of help, they often find that going in and sitting down and actually talking to somebody is much more helpful to them, for example, than trying to find help on the web or through an app, which are brilliant, great, innovations in themselves, but not necessarily for all circumstances. People buying their first home, people thinking about how I'm going to plan for my retirement, people maybe that are struggling to pay their mortgage, want to just come down, get a friendly face and somebody that they think they can give them some help. And the research has been really clear. 80% of people said that's what should be on offer to them when they need it. Yeah, making high streets somewhere where people can still go and feel like they're part of a community hub is really important, isn't it? Because particularly in sort of outer urban areas in London where the high street can become more derelict and deprived as it moves away from the centre, there's something that we need to keep as a vital part of the community, aren't they? Yeah, 100%. I mean, everybody I speak to, all the research you look at really shows this real connection between the health of a community and the health of the high street. So it's something that, we over recent years, we've invested really heavily in our presence on the high street. And it's a physical sign effectively that, we believe in the future of the high street. We believe that they are incredibly important to local communities. And actually, if we feel that, then we do need to invest and show our support that way. And I would encourage, more people to do that, quite honestly. Don't local councils need to be giving more money to local high streets to help them thrive, i.e. that money's got to come from central government to help pockets around the capital improve their local areas? Yeah, I mean, one of the areas, clearly at the moment, the cost of living is affecting businesses as much as it's affecting, ordinary people. And I think, so we're obviously keen to see what government's going to do to try and support people through this difficult time. I think one of the other issues that would be very keen for government to take a really close look at is business rates. So there seems to be a real need for reform in terms of business rates to support small businesses that want to get established on the high streets, that are providing local employment, generating value for the local economy. And they will be the bigger businesses in years to come, but we need to help them get started and get a footing. So obviously that has benefits to people visiting the high street, because small and local businesses have a much better handle on what the local community wants from them, and they can adapt much quicker as well to some of those sort of bigger chains. Yeah, we need to act now, don't we? Because with energy bills at where they are and where they're going to go, and with the cost of living, businesses are likely to struggle exponentially in the next few months, and we'd like to see many of your typical high street small businesses go out of business. How dangerous is that, leaving all that open space? Yeah, well, I think this is why we were so interested in the shared services research, because I think, we do have to innovate. We have to think differently about how we provide services. We have to think differently about the high street. It's not going to be able to just support retail, or retail's not going to be able to support the high street alone. We'll need housing going up around the high street. We need different services, leisure, entertainment, etc. But, you know, if you look at what we've done here at the Building Society, by thinking differently and partnering and finding a different cost model, we can provide all the same services, but it's allowing us to actually expand our services, not contract them. So it just goes to show that, you know, whilst things are tough, you know, small businesses in particular are brilliant at innovating and finding new solutions and new ways and new offerings and new services. So I think we should remain positive about the high street. But as I say, if we want them to do well, then as we're doing, we've got to invest in them and we've got to support them. And that includes people going down and using them. If we do that, then they'll transform, but I think they've got a good future.
Stuart Miller, on the importance of the high street, particularly as energy bills and the cost of living crisis gets out of hand. You're watching London Live News with James Dickman. A reminder of our top story coming up after the break, also on the way. It's London Theatre Week, though it perhaps needs a name change. As we're 3 weeks in, we'll hear how you could see London's top West End shows for just £15.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
back to London Live News. Let's just take you through some of the main stories from today, starting with Liz Truss, her first full day in charge, and she faced her first Prime Minister's questions. She confirmed that she would set out her package of support to deal with soaring energy bills tomorrow. She used her first PMQs to promise to work with MPs across the House to tackle the challenges we face at a vital time for our country, she said, while standing firm on a position to not windfall tax the large oil companies who have recorded record profits this year.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honoured to take my place as Prime Minister in this House and to take on responsibility at a vital time for our country. I am determined to deliver for everybody across our United Kingdom. I will work constructively with all members of this House to tackle the challenges we face. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today. I am against a windfall tax. I believe it is the wrong thing to be putting companies off investing in the United Kingdom just when we need to be growing the economy.
Well, that formed a big part of the clash between Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, who took aim at Truss's plan that will likely see billions of pounds of borrowing instead, whilst also giving corporations a big tax cut.
She knows that every single pound in excess profits she chooses not to tax is an extra pound on borrowing that working people will be forced to pay back for decades to come. More borrowing than is needed. That's the true cost of her choice to protect oil and gas profits, isn't it?
Mr. Speaker, the reality is that this country will not be able to tax its way to growth. The way we will grow our economy is by attracting investment, keeping taxes low, delivering the reforms to build projects quicker. That is the way that we will create jobs and opportunities across our country.
Mr. Speaker, it's extraordinary that not only is the Prime Minister refusing to extend the windfall tax, she's also choosing to hand the water companies polluting our beaches a tax cut. She's choosing to hand the banks a tax cut.
Scenes from PMQs there today. Well, just before, multiple protesters were arrested after throwing paint on the Palace of Westminster. Animal Rebellion, who are an animal and climate justice movement, gathered outside Parliament, as you can see, pouring some kind of white liquid onto the roads here as well. A group of protesters have also glued themselves to the road outside and were chanting about dairy distribution sites in the UK. The group staged similar protests throughout London earlier this month. Now, it's London Theatre Week, and it's extending to become more like Theatre Month, heading into a third week now. It will run until September the 11th. More than 55 shows are taking part in the annual campaign, offering many West End favourites at prices as low as £15. Frozen, The Lion King and Grease are all on the list, giving Londoners the chance to experience productions at affordable prices. Alicia has been hearing more from Merritt Bayer from Todaytix, the company behind the scheme.
We launched London Theatre Week a few years ago with the express goal of ensuring that the best and brightest theatre in the world, which London is home to, could be seen by audiences that are locals, audiences that are tourists, and that people realized that going out to theatre didn't mean you had to spend £100 or £150 on a ticket, but some of the most incredible shows in the world you could see for 15, 25, 35 or 45 pounds, whether it be this week or next month. And so it's been a project that's been incredibly exciting to watch it grow, and realizing that we've conceived it really to bolster sales during periods that are really challenging for theatre. And it's been a runaway success over the last few years, and especially this one. We're on track to have our largest London Theatre Week of all time. And so extending it for an extra week just seemed to make sense, given the audiences were really connecting with it, and in a time of a lot of financial hardship and rising energy costs and challenges, being able to have an incredible night out for £15 felt like an important message to make sure we had to consumers everywhere in the UK.
What kind of feedback, other than the success of it, but what kind of feedback have you had from audiences about, being able to have this access to theatre in London?
I think the feedback we hear is actually just about our repeat buyers, people who come and they buy every London Theatre Week, so that they can make sure that they're seeing theatre either with their loved one or their family or their children, and taking their children to theatre sometimes for the very first time, and hopefully really instilling a love of theatre that I think you have and I have and so many others in our industry do, because it really is an unbelievably unique opportunity. The world is so much streaming and screens and this, that, and the other, to be able to have a live, in-person, intimate experience, and in so many cases across the West End, just be blown away by the talent of the incredible performers on and off stage.
Now, obviously it's a great benefit for audiences, but what does it mean for the shows themselves?
I think that's it. It's certainly for many shows, they're offering kind of either a great discount or an incentive that really only happens this 1 or 2 times a year. But I think 2 things. One, we originally launched London Theatre Week in February a few years ago, really to help turn the tide against challenging cold months, late February, early March, generally a challenging time for theatre, to really help our theatre partners. And that's why we actually added a second campaign end of August into September, as September is another notoriously challenging month for theatre. So I think that, look, there are certainly amazing deals to be had, but it's also a great chance to get involved for the first time in theatre, and I think hopefully everyone in our industry is excited to bring in first-time theatre goers, and create new rabid fans that ultimately, whether they buy a £25 ticket now, but then want to go see some amazing, super hot, sold-out play that they end up buying tickets for in advance, for £50 next time, hopefully it creates a real habit of theatre buying, and I think that's a big part of why our 55 plus theatre partners support us, and ensuring that accessibility message is something that we should have year round, and so many shows do. So many shows do a great job of making sure theatre is affordable. But I think hopefully we really ensure we get that message out there to the widest group possible.
We have seen in recent months reports of certain shows really pushing up their prices, even changing prices night by night according to demand. What's your take on this, and do you think that's a fair way of working, or should there be more consistency among these shows?
I think it's hard. I think every show is kind of in a very different place. You have the incredibly hot shows with either a superstar or a super smash hit musical coming in from Broadway. And unfortunately for producers and theater owners and people who work in theater, rising costs are a real thing. Obviously COVID brought a ton of new costs, whether it be testing backstage or whether it be currently rising energy costs. And the fact is, mounting a West End show is an incredibly ambitious and expensive endeavor. And I think that when you think about how we look at hotels or travel or other forms of entertainment, going to go see a phenomenal concert at the O2, there's always going to be different prices for different seats, and there's going to be hopefully some really nice affordable seats, and probably also some really premium seats that kind of go to the top bidder. And so I think the reality is dynamic pricing happens in almost every single West End venue these days, as it does in probably almost every other form of entertainment that we pursue as consumers. So I think it is here to stay, and I think that's part of why London Theatre Week is so kind of special and important, because it is for set prices. Those haven't changed ever. There's certainly no intention to ever change them. And it's kind of a guarantee to consumers that at least once or now twice a year, you'll be able to get phenomenal theater at super affordable prices. I mean, almost there's got to be 2/3 or more of the West End that has 15, 25, or 35 pound tickets currently in this campaign. It's unmissable deals.
There you go, londontheatre.co.uk, if you want to take advantage of all of that before it ends on the 11th. Right, we're taking a short break now, but coming up, Kim Wilde will be here, the Kids in America singer from Chiswick, on her concert in the capital. Stay with us.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello there, welcome back to the last part of London Live News. Firstly, coming to the capital this September is Kim Wilde as she performs her greatest hits to celebrate her 40-year career. Most famous for her debut single, Kids in America, Kim will perform her concert that was rescheduled due to the pandemic. Well, the London-born singer and presenter will perform classics such as Hanging On and You Came at the London Palladium. Let's hear from her.
I sit here alone and I wonder why. Friday night and everyone's moved. I can feel the heat, but it's soothing heading down.
My brand of pop music was a melting pot of pop history up to that point. I had a strong emphasis on the exciting new sounds from synth technology, used by bands like OMD, The Human League, etc. And within, I think, our brand, I call our brand because I was working very much with my brother, obviously with my father Marty at the time, but most particularly with Ricky as producer. And within our sound, there lived the Beatles and the Ronettes and ABBA and Roxy Music and Motown, and so it went on. So it was a real, like I say, it was a real melting pot of pop history up to that point. I actually enjoy performing more now than I did back in the 80s. I mean, the 80s, there was a strong emphasis really on miming on Top of the Pops and making videos and doing photo shoots and lots of interviews, which I did all over the world. So it wasn't until sort of a little bit later on in the 80s when technology improved as well, so that you could replicate those sounds that you spent days and weeks finding in the studio. So, which, of course, our music was very sort of synth loaded. So it was great to have the technology as it grew. Our sound got better live on stage than it would have done at the beginning of the 80s, I think. So now I'm enjoying live music more than ever. And the technology of in-ears is profound. You notice everyone now has these in-ears on. Lady Gaga and Harry Styles, they've all got them on. And you can hear yourself better, so you can actually perform better, you can sing better. So actually for me, performing live has got easier and more enjoyable as I've got older.
We're the kids in America. Whoa. We're the kids in America. Whoa. Everybody live for the music around.
The pandemic was difficult for a lot of people, but I think especially for performers who what does a performer do in a pandemic? I went out and did some gardening, but I think a lot of people found it very tough. And actually what it did was it made us realize how much we loved what we were doing. So I think there were a number of us, and I include myself, I think, to a degree, who just had taken it all a little bit for granted, maybe. And so, yeah, the thought of not being able to get up on stage and perform live for an audience and have fun with them became more and more precious as the weeks and months went on. There was a time in the pandemic when there was a real possibility that it would never come back, and at that point I started feeling all a little bit heartbroken. And so now that I'm back, it's even more. It means even more. It's even more exciting to be on stage. I was at a festival at the weekend, a local festival, in the audience for a change, and I got to really experience what that feels like, to be just part of the crowd, enjoying live music, and it was wonderful, and I could feel the energy from the band, I could feel the energy from everyone around me, and I just realised, how special and how precious live music is, to not just to me as a performer, but to the audiences. Right now, I'm just about to go back into some more rehearsals for the Greatest Hits tour. It starts in the UK on the 10th of September through to the 27th, and then I go to Germany, I do it all over again, the Greatest Hits, and then I go to Holland and I do it all over again, and then I go to Sweden, and then I get back for Christmas, and then I start a new album next year. So there's a lot of work for me to do. I'm really looking forward to seeing my audience again. It'll be a great celebration of 40 years in the music industry, and say hi to all my fans again. So I'm very, very excited.
That was Kim Wilde there discussing how she will take to the stage in her concert that takes place on the 27th of this month. Right, finally, some theatre. First a businessman, then a reality TV star, and most recently a politician. Donald Trump's most recent venture is now the focus of a brand new musical coming to the capital. Trump Loyal, a musical, starts tonight at the Gatehouse in Highgate and presents a unique blend of art and politics. Henry's been speaking to the production's very own Trump and the director. Let's see how the title should actually be pronounced.
It's pronounced trompe-l'œil, and that's a pun for the French term trompe-l'œil, which means optical illusion in French.
Everyone knows Donald Trump, of course, you know, first a businessman, then on TV, and of course, most famously, the US president. Why did you decide to get on board with something just like this?
You know, when we talk about Trump a lot of the time, it can be quite nihilistic. Even the comedy can be quite nihilistic and quite bleak. Either that, or it kind of paints him as this kind of really stupid person. And you know, I think what's really exciting about this particular show is that it doesn't do that. It does work really hard to poke fun and to, as I say, reclaim that power through comedy, through circus, through cabaret, through all those kind of themes. And yeah, I think it's just I think it's an uplifting suggestion of, or opportunity to take the pee out of a really surreal period in political history, while also giving quite an uplifting message of, like, you know, yes, this was quite surreal, and you know, hopefully we can move on from that and learn from it.
Now, Vivek, you play Trump in the production. What's it like playing someone like Donald Trump? And I saw in the run-up to his presidency that his speech composition and sentence structure was someone, you know, that of someone who's 16 or under. Now, that could perceive to be not clever, but some obviously say he is clever, and to get into power, that is the case. Now, what do you make of playing someone like that, but also someone with his sort of rhetoric?
In certain moments, I'll heighten my impression of Trump, and then in other moments, I throw it away altogether because actually it's kind of not quite the way Trump would say it anyway. So I kind of lean into that, I guess. I don't know if that answers the question fully, but I've kind of played around with more or less which scene I'm in, what is the power dynamic, am I high, am I low, and then as a result of that, do I play him as being intelligent, or do I play him as being more of a clown? But it's funny as well, because I think at the same time, some of the really clever clowns are really intelligent people. Like, playing a clown is difficult to do. And also, like, the thing you said before about his sentence composition, it's also interesting because actually, in a way, you could say that that's quite clever, because it makes his speeches more accessible, in that if anyone from 16 and under, or with an education of 16 and under, can understand what he's saying, then, you know, his message is going to go a lot further than if you need, I guess, like a university education to understand what he's saying. You know what I mean? So in a way, I think also there's something of like the accessibility of communication in what he's saying.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I think it's really dangerous to pigeonhole Trump as stupid, right? Because, as you know, he definitely has this subpar literacy. He definitely isn't intelligent in certain areas, but he is. He manipulates people. He knows he's really good at manipulating people and at making deals and at making people believe what he believes. And I think that's just a really important and interesting thing when we're looking at this role is, you know, where is he really smart, and how did that intelligence get him into power? And where is he, you know, where is he stupid, and where does he not know what he's doing? But it's important not to completely dismiss him.
In terms of people coming to the performance, what do you want them to sort of think about? Because, as we've mentioned, he is a very serious figure, both the fact that he looks stupid but is clever and vice versa. What do you want people to think about when, you know, with your portrayal of Trump?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more about Trump, the idea in terms of, if a person like this, who has such wealth and such influence and such power, then gets to the ultimate sort of station in life, like, you know, leader of, you know, probably the most influential country in the world, what can happen? Do you know what I mean? Because I think that it's very easy for us to, some people like, oh, well, he can't really do anything. Like, there's an entire infrastructure of parliament and government in place. He can't really do whatever he wants. And so for me, I sort of think it's less about him as a person and more about him as an idea. Because if he's in parliament, if he's the leader of the government, like, of course the things he does directly impacts people's lives in a material way. And I guess I'm really hoping that we've made that clear in the production, that people see that and that they make that link, because otherwise you might feel like, here's Trump's storyline, here's this other storyline, and you might not see the synergy between the two of them. I really hope that we've made that clear enough.
Well, there you go. That is Trump Loyal, a musical on at the Gatehouse in Highgate, and that's till the 2nd of October. One last check on the weather for you now. Showers heavy in places in the early hours of this morning, easing off by about sort of 3-4. Tomorrow we'll see patchy cloud and sunny spells. During the afternoon it will build up a bit more, giving way to some scattered showers with some overcast weather. Friday is set to be rather cloudy with a few sunny breaks and scattered showers as well. Drier on Saturday, hovering around that 20-degree mark for the foreseeable. Well, that's all we've got time for this evening. Thank you for watching. Do join us again at the very same time tomorrow. But for now, take care.